Tonight, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez destroys the world again. Live action is still stupid, and quite possibly the worst magazine I've ever seen. This is the January 7th, 2019 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. First off, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently said that our top marginal tax rate should be between 60 and 70%, which would actually still be lower than it was under FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, and Carter. Whoops. But either way, this enraged Republicans all over Twitter. For instance, Grover Norquist, who, if you do not know, is the creator of, or is the president, and I think the founder of Americans for Tax Reform, which is really just a nice way of saying tax cuts. Because you ever notice that it's never tax reform in a way that doesn't do anything but cut taxes for the rich? Norquist tweeted this: "Slavery is when your owner takes 100% of your production." No, it isn't. It's when you have an owner. Democrat Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants 70%. Yes, she specifically is getting the tax money. Not individuals in the federal government, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez specifically. What is the word for 70%? Expiration. Expropriation? I'm bad with words today. This is from Dinesh D'Souza. The top marginal tax rate was 70% in the 80s before Reagan lowered it to 28%. That's actually true. Now some leftists want to undo the Reagan revolution that never actually happened. Democrats never lost the majority in either house of Congress during the entire Reagan administration. You got 5 people elected. Congratulations. And take the rate back to the 70s. Dream on, losers. Not going to happen. You know, I'm pretty sure they were saying that back before FDR raised it to the 90s. Oh, there's also the fact that, polling data has shown that even Republicans consistently want taxes to be higher on the rich. But, okay. What I'm saying is to you, Dinesh, go back to promoting Death of a Nation. No one's going to watch it who hasn't already watched it. Don't get me wrong. But you're much more tolerable when you're just doing that. Okay, one more. Let's do Ben Shapiro next. This is part of a larger thread. I'm not going to go through the full thing, mainly because Twitter is very annoying sometimes. But essentially, this person told Ben, under Republican President Dwight Eisenhower, not usually considered a radical, the top marginal income tax rate on most wealthy was over 90%, and the country had a booming economy. And then here is what Mr. Shapiro, the cool kids philosopher himself, had to say. Fun fact, the 91% marginal tax rate applied to an inflation-adjusted joint income of $3.4 million, today $380K. I think he meant the other way around there, by the way. Yeah. And the top 1% today is people who make roughly $500K a year. You could deduct all loans, expenses, and real estate depredations, everyone filed under corporate rates, and the effective tax rate for top earners was about 45%. So, okay, Ben. Therefore, Cortez, by supporting that policy, is actually supporting an effective rate of about 45% and not 70% on all income like you claimed. You're not very smart, you know that? Anyway, so this is something I saw on Twitter from Live Action. I know a lot of the show is just basically me going around reading different Twitters, but that's just entertaining to me. Making sure I have to adjust the mic in the middle of the show again. I hate doing that. I saw this from live action, and it honest to God made me very angry. Planned Parenthood stands to profit from sex. Which is why they... let's go through the three things they list. Abortion pill, $1,000. That's not even true, by the way. Somebody pointed out that the actual cost for within 10 weeks is about $350 to $650. STD treatment, $511, which they profit so much off of. That's why they also give out condoms, which help prevent STDs. You don't make sense. Same thing with abortion pills. Why would they give out birth control if they at the same time have so much interest in abortion pills? Like, nothing about your logic makes any sense. But this is the one that actually annoyed me. HPV vaccine, $500. You're going after Planned Parenthood for passing out the HPV vaccine. I'm not even going to comment on that. Let's read a little bit more. It's no wonder Planned Parenthood pushes a dangerous anything goes. What does that even mean, anything goes? I don't think they legitimately tell people it's okay to rape, for one. Oh no, they're probably referring to... I think they filmed that video where it's like a woman asks a Planned Parenthood employee, who's supposed to also be a sex educator, about BDSM. And she actually has the audacity to answer the questions. Like, at some point, it's just your fault for asking the question. We must keep Planned Parenthood away from our children and our communities. They may actually give them HPV vaccines. We can't have that. And, of course, this just proves what I've been saying all along. Planned Parenthood isn't even a pro-life organization. Live Action isn't even a pro-life organization. As pro-life organizations go, they're one of the worst, because at this point, they're just anti-sex and anti-science. And I don't mean in a normal way. People accuse pro-lifers of doing that. This is something else. Give me a second to pull it up. I saw this a little while ago from Leah Rose's Twitter account. And I was just saying this. Okay. The National Institute of Health receives over $26 billion taxpayer dollars a year. I think we spend more on foreign aid than we do on that, for the record. That's like 0.5% of our budget. The agency is still led by Obama appointee Dr. Francis Collins, who supports creating and destroying human lives, embryos, for research. Well, how is he supposed to research them? Dr. Collins also supports human clothing and creating human-animal cremas. Cremas? I can't pronounce that. Well, wait, you're a pro-life organization. What's wrong with human cloning, of all things? Like, that's a very weird thing to go after. Because if anything, wouldn't that just create another... Oh, no, it has to be created in a special way. We can't use science at all to create a new life. Despite the fact I'd assume that's better than creating no life. And for the record, just before I record this episode, Matt Walsh tweeted this. I have noticed that pro-abortion men, pro-choice men, no one is pro-abortion, no one has a happy coat hanger dance. I hate to inform you, of course. Like to tell pro-life men that we have no right to argue with women about abortion. No one... Has anyone actually made that claim? Like, at least recently, because I'm in pro-life... It's the same thing with the Clump of Cells claim. Someone probably made it at one point. I'm not denying that. What I am denying is that it's a common argument people on my side use. We typically don't. What we're saying there is that if a woman doesn't want to get an abortion, that's perfectly fine. If they do want to get one, that's perfectly fine. But then those same men have no problem arguing with pro-life women. You know, there was a ContraPoints video where it's like the Nazi came, and the Nazi was like, well, how could I be a Nazi? I'm LGBT. And Contra just said, yeah, it's almost like your ideology makes no sense. We don't really care the sex of pro-lifers, quite frankly, because their ideology doesn't make any sense regardless. Just figured you should know. You know, can we just not talk about the pro-life movement for a minute, though? You know, let's look at maybe a magazine that's kind of silly, you know. There's this new one, Eve. Apparently it's the one roaming millennial writes for. It's not made for me, it's made for women, so I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on these issues. But, you know, maybe I can at least get a laugh out of it. Let's see what they've been saying. Women's mags have taken millions from PharmaCorp to sell abortion to girls under the guise of empowerment. Okay. First off, no one has actually said getting an abortion is empowering. And quite frankly, if they do, they should not have children to begin with. What we've actually said is that the option is the empowerment. In the same way, it is not in itself empowering that women can, for instance, eat Big Macs in the West, or can they? Is there a law against eating Big? There may actually be at this point. I don't follow detailed Middle East laws. I'm sorry. Without consequences, it's the option that's the empowerment. Second off, citation needed. This isn't religious/political. Oh, it's definitely political. It's about human rights and social justice, which are inherently political. Teen Voyage. Who? You've exploited to fill your pockets. We refuse. These are strong, independent women who do not need no abortions. That was about as interesting as anything these people have said. Straw man seem to be this magazine's thing, by the way. For instance, they write tweets talking about how women have been told for decades that being in the kitchen is degrading. Actually, it's when that's the only option progressives have an issue with. And again, if anyone has an issue with the idea in itself, then they should not be in a kitchen ever. I think that goes without saying. Their pinned tweet is saying there's nothing empowering about casual sex, which no one's ever argued. Again, it's the option where the empower. In the same way, it is not empowering for you to just express any right. The empowerment comes from you having that right to begin with. And then they later said, unless it's with your spouse, then it's empowering, which, okay, how is that empowering, though? Your argument doesn't make any sense. Of course, I could go through their entire Twitter and make fun of their entire ideology. Long story short, they are about as interesting as dirt, but sometimes have unintentionally funny tweets. However, this is one I particularly like. If you care about choice, why would you ever shout and curse at a fellow woman? I'm not a woman, so I don't have that issue. In fact, there were actually quite a few men in business suits in the picture who choose to give birth. Then it shows a Twitter for a state legislator in Ohio and says, "You're beautiful and courageous." The issue that they're not mentioning is she was about to go vote for a pro-life bill. That's why people were angry. It wasn't that she was a woman who had children. It was that she brought those children to vote for a pro-life bill. And on a side note, a state legislation But a state house or legislator in any way is not an appropriate place for children. Let's be clear. I would like to end with this, because they actually make a point that I've been making for a while. Animal lovers, if you decided to put down your pet, would you cry, or would you celebrate and tell others that you put it down and brag about how great it was? That'd take a pretty sick person. Now take a human life, same scenario, how about now? Again, it's been making the point I've made for a long time. The people who are most likely to be pro-lifers are the extreme vegan people. I'm Ephrom, and good night.